Right, I'm here with my childhood friend from Homer, Davin, and he's got some interesting stories, but we're talking about the Bigfoot in the Pacific Northwest, and I wanted to interview you about this sighting you have in Oregon. Tell us about the time, where you were, and what happened.
All right, well, God, my whole life I've always believed in the idea of Bigfoot. Never had seen one, but I've always been kind of sort of romantic idea that they existed. And then one day, actually on my way to my high school pottery teacher's house in just outside of McMinnville, up in the foothills there where they'd done a bunch of logging. They were clear cutting everything up there. I was driving down this little road off the main road. It was very densely, very heavily forested, very heavy forest, like moss everywhere and kind of boggy, and kind of an ideal, almost seems like an ideal place where you'd, would find a Sasquatch, Bigfoot. But on this particular day I was driving my little Celica, and I came around a corner and I saw something in a blur go across the road. And these are days when, you didn't have a cell phone, you're driving, paying attention, listening to music and daydreaming, and all of a sudden this blur went across the road and it was kind of almost dark. I wasn't sure what I'd seen. I was like, I think that was something big. Definitely wasn't a bear, definitely wasn't a moose. I was like, I think it's a Bigfoot. So anyway, at least that's what I told myself, to keep that childhood fantasy alive. And so I proceeded up the driveway to this little cabin right by this pond, kind of similar to where we're at right now, actually. There's a pond out there, and I'm in the cabin right now. And so then I went and talked to Jack about this, and I told him about my Bigfoot sighting. It's like, I think I saw a Bigfoot. And he's like, yeah, he said, there have been other sightings out here, and, every now and then we'll notice something missing. And I was like, oh God, okay, cool, right on. Well, part of me was a little bit scared, but also curious. So anyway, I think a couple more nights had passed, and I was sleeping. The main house was up on the hill, and I was down by this little pond. And if I'm inside the cabin right here, there's some steps over there, a little porch, and the cabin's behind me, and it's like the door's over here, and there's a pond there, and kind of an elevated, probably 6 feet off the ground, elevated porch all the way around. And so one night, I'm sleeping. So you walk in, there's this little nook, just about 6'3" ceiling, little nook on top where you sleep, and the kitchen's right beneath it. So I was up there sleeping, and I heard a creaking, wasn't sure quite what it was, and I woke up and I was like, I just kept quiet because I thought maybe Jack had walked in the cabin, or maybe Nils, whose land it was, and I heard a little rustling around. Then the door closed and it was kind of gone. But I was just kind of like, what was that? Who was that? I didn't say anything. I was kind of sleepy. I just didn't really care. My alert hadn't gone off yet. But I was like a little bit, I don't know, I felt, in a way I was scared, but I wasn't, but I was so tired, so I just passed back out. In the morning, I realized that my cup of noodles was gone. And what else did I have that was missing? Pineapple chunks. My pineapple slices were missing, and some Ritz crackers or something else was missing. And so I was like kind of excited about it. I was like, holy shit. And I was like, Jack, did you come in last night? No. I'm like, oh my God. And then I got a little bit scared. I got a little bit scared. I was like, fuck. Okay, shit. A Bigfoot came into the cabin while I was sleeping. And so that next night, for some reason, it was a full moon, and I have this, since I was a kid, I've been really freaked out about wolves, especially around the full moon. They're out there watching me, and I'd have to run out to the outhouse, and I'd like run out, I'd close the door, they'd be watching me, the little orange eyes everywhere. It's like, man, I tell you. So that was all playing through my head, and then I started getting a little bit more afraid, and I was like, okay, fuck, I gotta defend myself, like, what if it wants to do me harm or something, so. But once again, I never was really afraid of them. the Bigfoots. And so that night there was kind of a window, and I chose not to sleep up in the loft. I chose to sleep in the shadow of the window because the moon was coming in from over the pond. And so if I slept right underneath the window, I was kind of in the shadow, and then I could see what was walking on the porch in front of me. Because that night before I'd seen a shadow with a partial, moon. And there's also a step over here that squeaked. Like the first step up, it was like, "Eek." And so I could tell if somebody's getting on the porch. And so I laid down there and I had a golf club. So I took my golf club and I propped it up right against the wall there, past the window, in between the window and the door, so I could like grab it if anything happened and defend myself, because, just in case. So I ended up falling asleep, and then I heard it. I heard that squeaky first step, and I fucking froze. It was like, holy shit. And then silence, nothing happened, and then the shadow. Full on shadow, the whole, like I could see the whole shadow of this big, and I was laying there and I couldn't see, I just saw the shadow. I could see darkness walk past the window, but I was trying to hide at the same time, so all I saw was a shadow. And so I kind of very quietly nestled myself up against the wall, reached for the golf club, and I heard the door open, and I reached for the golf club. I tried to stand up, and I knocked the golf club over, made a noise, and the door closed, and whatever was on my porch, which I think was a Bigfoot.
2 legs? Did it seem from the shadow and the sounds that it was on 2 legs?
I think it was on 2 legs.
Wow.
Yeah. Yep. Nature, beautiful nature. So, and it was such a silent, whatever it was, I looked and I could see through the window, it disappeared off the porch and skirted around the pond. And it was just it was hard to determine 2 legs or not. It was like 1 leg. It was like a mono Bigfoot. It was just like, I didn't see, it was just a big mass of shadowy form disappearing off into the woods. That's all I could see.
So did it almost feel like it had like a supernatural element to it?
It felt like it was very, it was about a 6-foot drop, and it happened just with ease and grace.
Yeah.
It was like, and I actually went the next day to look for tracks, and I really didn't see any tracks.
Interesting.
So I was like, and over the years now, this is in 1998. And over the years, the story's been exaggerated a little bit. I gave you, the story tonight that I'm telling you, that's without any of my exaggerations, but, I've told little kids the stories about how tall it was and how big its arms were, but I don't remember seeing all that, but
and it was able to open a door, which would make you think that it had some kind of appendage that could manipulate things.
It was definitely opened the door. It was definitely upright, this creature. Mm-hmm. And I kind of felt like after that night I didn't sleep in the cabin again. Mm-hmm. But I did leave food there, and I talked to the owners of the property about Jack and Nils Lou and all those guys, and they said, yeah, very frequently things are missing, and they definitely, there weren't any homeless camps in that area at that time, back then. That was all in the inner city stuff. Out there was just nothing. And so anything that was out there was, later after that, I don't feel like any harm was meant to me. Mm-hmm. And it was just, I felt like whatever I could do to help. So I left a bunch of food there when I left the cabin, and said, hey, it's yours, whatever's left here, feel free to come and get it, And since then I've been more inquisitive and curious and not afraid anymore. And I was like, I would have felt really bad if I conked out a Bigfoot with a golf club. Let's just put it that way. Because I feel like they are very docile. I haven't heard of any anything negative. Like, I've never heard of a Bigfoot hurting a human being.
Disagree.
Personally, I've never heard of that.
Was it hairy and shaggy? Could you tell if it was hairy and shaggy?
It looked to me like it was hairy and shaggy, or like a big cloak, like it had a big cloak of some sort. But I'm still gonna, I'm out in the woods, it's late at night, I'm still packing heat, but I'll tell you what, unless there's a definite aggressive move against me from a Bigfoot, I would definitely not shoot a Bigfoot.
Okay, that's fair.
Personally, that's just how I feel about it. Now a bear coming at me, different story. You can tell what a bear's like, but if it's upright and it's being docile and not hurting me, I'm definitely gonna respect it and let it be, back away.
All right.
Or maybe even try to say hi or do some sign language and be like, "You hungry? I have food. I share."
Totally.
Like, I want to meet a Bigfoot. I want to develop some type of sign language communication. Like, I'm very, very curious. So
We may get the chance because in the next few weeks we are going to visit your cabin, which is across from Kachemak Bay in a very hot spot.
yes, very,
And many sightings.
very, very, very many sightings. I've heard little stories here and there, and yeah, I'm excited for that.
All right.
Especially to check out some infrared
Absolutely.
action, because I know they're very secretive, and they're very cautious about where they show themselves and how. I think it's kind of like a lightning strike. You're very lucky to see one.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for the interview, buddy, and
Yeah.
we're going to have some adventures to come.
All right, cool.